because I've done 9 days dry fast with no food or water where they tell you you'll die after 3 days, right? I lived and I felt great.
All right, we're here with another plant-based production with our lovely guests, Miss Diana and Mr. Peri Plant Master. You guys seen him on the IG whipping up the raw barbecue. Guys, it's so fun to have you on the show. Kind of random, also planned for many months. Yep. So I feel like we just got a fresh jolt of energy after being tired 10 seconds ago. So Absolutely. That's good. Yeah, amazing what headphones will do.
The headphones turn it up.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're going to share some of our journey, share some of our wisdom today, and create some goodness in the world that is much needed. I messaged Peri on Instagram after I saw him wearing a Phillies hat and something about a transformation from a barbecue pit master to now a plant-based plant master. Share a little bit about that whole transition and go Phillies.
Yeah, go Phillies. Yeah, so like you said, my name's Peri, the plant master, and always often refer to myself or my journey as the journey from death to rebirth. I was a barbecue food truck owner, very passionate about my craft, had a lot of integrity in everything I did and hard work, and became the best at what I was doing where I was at. And I started out my food ventures opening up a catering business, and did like weddings and birthdays and farmers markets and things like that. And lots of meat, man. I did a lot of beef barbecue, which wasn't offered a lot where I was from. A lot of pork barbecue was the hit where I was at, but I wanted to bring something new. Whenever I do something, I want to bring something to wherever I'm at that isn't there. And so I did like pulled beef sandwiches, nachos, and tacos. And I did that with chicken and beef, and it was a hit. You know, in my small community, I had made quite a name for myself, and it was good. Like, it was a dream come true. Everything I ever wanted was happening at the time. And after about 4...
I just want to say congratulations.
Yeah.
Regardless
absolutely.
of what you endeavor on.
Yeah, thank you.
It's hard to have what you just said come true.
Yes. I started to realize I was having some health complications. You know, over the years, health had been something I was aware of, but didn't really take serious. You know, because until something comes knocking at your door, you kind of just brush things off, and people tell you about how something made them sick or whatever, and until it becomes real for you, you have to spring into action. And so I started having some health complications early on in my barbecue career. I kind of had like an inner knowing that maybe some of the choices I was eating weren't right. Obviously chicken wings and beer and barbecue all the time was eventually going to take its toll, but I didn't think it was going to take its toll that early, And coming from a background in my family history of having colitis and digestive issues, a lot of stomach cancers and things like that, it was always on my radar. I feared it, but I really didn't do anything to any preventative maintenance. I was just like, it just runs in the family. How everybody says, it just runs in the family. So it's just the way it is. So when these health complications popped up, it manifested itself as like hemorrhoids. And the hemorrhoids then turned into something more serious. It was a precursor to something that was happening internally in my digestive system. So those symptoms or warning signs are there for a reason, And so I kind of ignored them when I first started seeing them. I started seeing some blood when I would go to the bathroom and wipe, and I was just, kind of startled me, but I didn't want to think about it. You know what I mean? Like, if I don't think about it, it'll just go away.
Ignorance is bliss.
Right. And so one day at work, I went to go use the bathroom, and I noticed that my stomach and my rectum hurt like really bad. Probably the worst pain I've ever been in as far as going to the bathroom. And when I went to the bathroom, a lot of blood came out. Worst nightmare. I've always thought about it, and I was like, I just hope that doesn't happen to me, and it did happen to me. And so when that happened, it scared the crap out of me. So I started asking questions, started looking up what this was all about. And so I ended up going to the doctor, getting a colonoscopy, and they determined that I had precancerous polyps that were getting to a pretty good size. And if I would have ignored it any longer, it could have been really serious, or life-threatening. And so immediately after I got done with the colonoscopy, the surgical doctors that were in there doing the colonoscopy, I was 4 women, and they started telling me I'd probably have to start chilling out on the red meat specifically, but a lot of meat in general, and start having more of a, more plants and things like that in my life, more veggies and fruits and stuff, and which is actually odd because no doctor's ever, told me anything much about changing my diet. It's always, here's this pill, you'll be all right. Just come back and get this pill. But when they said that, I thought about it a lot because that my business was focused around barbecue. So as time went on, I kind of ignored it. I started eating chicken, got away from the red meat, but still really didn't change anything with my diet. And then as time went on, I saw that nothing was getting better. And around October 6th of 2019, I started getting some really bad pains in my abdomen. And then that's when I changed and I cut out all flesh or meat at that time and went completely plant-based. Still ate some cheese and eggs, but I completely took out meat. And I felt the effects of starting to eat less dense and more plants and things like that, and incrementally started feeling better. So then I just deep dove into the plant-based life and started seeing the healing effects of it, and completely healed myself of the ailments that I was dealing with. So.
And how old were you when kind of these first signs showed up where you're like, wow, it's not going to happen to me? Mm-hmm. You're a young guy.
Yeah, I was actually around 34, 35 when I started having these issues, so, which is really young to have those issues. But it's like the age for going to get colonoscopies keeps lessening. It's like, why is it going younger and younger? And for me at that age, I was just like, I shouldn't have these problems until at least 50. I mean, you shouldn't have these problems at all, really. But
and how do you feel now?
Feel great. Feel young. Feel vibrant. More energy than I've ever had. At age 30, I had my midlife crisis. Like, I couldn't get off the couch when I get off the couch, I couldn't bend straight up all the way. I had to kind of stay hunkered down a little bit and then ease my way up. And I started noticing these things at such an early age. And I was just like, if 30 sucks this bad, then 50 is going to really suck, And right now I really feel like a child again. Honestly, I feel like I'm 18. It's really wild to feel younger at an older age than I did when I was at a younger age. So.
Yeah, I sense that a lot with some of the people who have had that revelation with drastically changing their diet, which leads to lifestyle changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, let's pass the baton. Princess Diana here.
Yeah.
And I just met Diana yesterday, so let's backtrack just 24 hours. Today is December 22nd, 2022. It's Hanukkah. No one cares. Just kidding. L'chaim.
L'chaim.
Ironically enough, Peri and I, like I said in the beginning, have been messaging on Instagram. Let's get together. And then we messaged each other a day ago. Mm-hmm. 10 minutes later, I walk into the restaurant Trilogy Sanctuary in La Jolla with my friend, and there you are, just right in front of me.
I looked up and I was like, no, really? We just got done texting each other.
Like that was a divine appointment to make now to lead us into this podcast in a more comfortable light. And Diana, we just met then, and not that I've known PlantMaster here for a long time, although just kind of that Philly and that connection, there was something there. And share a little bit about what you were telling me in regards to basically your whole life being not exposed, like kind of living that plant-based lifestyle. And because that's rare. That's really rare, I think, for someone. You hear it just, oh yeah, I was never raised around meat. I feel like that's super.
Well, I was raised around meat. I went vegetarian at the age of 7, just on my own accord, because I guess, it happened because at the age of 7, I discovered that chicken nuggets were made out of chickens. They were dead chickens. And hamburgers were dead cows. And I just felt betrayed. How are my farm friends in my belly, you know? And so I like boycotted meat. My family thought it was a phase. So they just, you know, entertained it. Like, okay, whatever. She'll get tired of eating sides. And I never did. They didn't really accommodate me for a while. But my mom, she eventually did end up, you know, like she'd buy me hummus and things, you know, but it was tough. I think being plant-based is trendy now, which is great. I'm glad that it's taking off because there's more options, but growing up where it's not trendy or when it wasn't trendy was tough. But it did expose me to a lot of different, I guess, philosophies that are tied to being vegetarian or plant-based. Like just as a child that I probably wouldn't have been exposed to, just different spirituality, yoga, movement, all types of things, just because it's all associated. And they just assume, oh, you're vegetarian? Do you know, here's some crystals, here's some Reiki, here's some, you know. So I got exposed to a lot of those things just by accident, sort of. So it made a big impact on my life.
And you've carried forward with that spirituality and have dove deeper into that?
Yeah, definitely. I consider myself a student first and foremost. I study everything. I'm a polymathic student interested in everything. I'm an artist and I'm a scientist. I like to experiment. You can be an unhealthy vegan or vegetarian because I was at my heaviest, I was 200 pounds. So, and that was not eating any type of flesh. So
that's a good
Oreos
point.
are vegan.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And that's okay. And I had one of my roommate's friends who was just talking about eggs. He just came over here a couple of days ago. He's like, eggs. Yeah, I love it. Rocks my body so good. I was like, dude, I hate to burst your bubble. Rip Esselstyn is the son of Caldwell Esselstyn. Do you know that name?
No.
So Caldwell Esselstyn is a older gentleman leader, and I call these guys like the founding fathers, the older guys who have been pioneering plant-based for a while. He's a leading heart surgeon at the Cleveland Clinic, and his son Rip Esselstyn, a couple good leaders, a little older than us. He has this Plant Strong brand, and it's like focused on firefighters getting healthy, like manly men who don't know about plant-based eating. And he's like, one egg has as much cholesterol as 2 Whoppers from Burger King.
Wow.
One egg. So this guy comes over, and we ended up messaging all one night, the other night. And he's like, dude, I'm changing my diet.
And actually, when you start studying the body, which most people don't do, I didn't start doing it until I started becoming more aware of the bodily functions and what they do, and that as far as how the body works, it's basically an elimination station. We're constantly putting food in. It takes what it needs and it, pushes it out. And you're talking about processed foods and foods, especially like a lot of starchy foods, a lot of things are going to act like glue in the body, kind of bind us up. And if your elimination system is bound, it just collects. And like you said, it taints the blood, it makes it thicker and poisons the river. I call it the river of life inside the body. And if you can't eliminate and it just keeps piling on, you start having diseases of the body, right? And then you'll start having these symptoms, which I believe most disease is just a symptom of something that's bigger in the body. And instead of going through the work of correcting it naturally, we go to doctors and stuff and get these pills and things, which ultimately just put a Band-Aid on the symptom, but doesn't really get down to the nitty-gritty of why the symptom's happening. Basically, like your oil light coming on in your car, you just take it to the car guy and he just turns the light off for you, but you never change the oil. Eventually your engine's going to blow up.
How about breathing techniques? Have you studied breathing like in and out through your nose?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And
that's correct.
Yeah.
Mouth breathing is actually a sympathetic action to the body, sympathetic nervous system, and your parasympathetic. Anything that's sympathetic is fight or flight. It's your left side of the brain, which essentially is survival. It's always being in survival mode, and anxiety and a lot of adrenaline and things like that. It takes its toll on your body because you're in survival. But nose breathing is parasympathetic, which is the body's ability to rest and digest. which a lot of people don't get, because we're told to eat, run, work with no rest, and so when you're asking about fasting is that of resting and giving the body a rest. As the most people don't know this, but about 80% of your immune system lies within the digestive system. So if you're continually eating and the digestive system has to solely work on just digesting, it never gets time to heal, and a lot of people only heal when they sleep, and when you get into fasting, as you start to clean out, you start to see the gunk that's in you. Like not long ago, I did a 123-day juice fast, and after day 100, I was having old poop come out, man, like big ones, man. I'm like, why is this coming out? I haven't eaten any solid food. And, as you dig in, you start seeing that a lot of the flesh you eat or meat or starchy foods, foods that are like glue in the system, they get stuck in there. And when they get stuck in there, it just clogs everything up. And once you get those things released, if you think about a water hose and you take it and kink it, you no longer get flow. And so to unkink that, the fasting journey for me just unkinked everything. And I literally felt my body like regenerating, and I felt better, had more energy. You need less sleep, because the reason why you sleep so much is because the body is still trying to repair what we're putting into our bodies. As they say, lions, when they eat meat, they sleep for 22 hours of the day and only get up to go hunt and go eat. Yeah. And so a lot of people compare our bodies to carnivores, and nothing about a human body screams carnivore.
Even the teeth. I had some people say, "Oh, I got some sharp teeth." I'm like, what part of that is really sharp compared to other animals out there? I guess look at the camera. Everyone, pull out your teeth a little.
Yeah,
the canine.
Flat.
Hey, that's a little sharp. I've had some really close friends, and even doctors say, I got sharp teeth. I'm like, do we know what sharp is? Like,
right.
If you look at a dog's canine, like that looks sharp.
Right. And their other teeth look sharp.
You ever, Diana, experimented with fasting?
Yeah, I have. I mean, the longest juice fast I've done is 8 days. But even in those 8 days, like I recognized that I wasn't hungry at all. It wasn't difficult. And I had so much energy. I was running off of 3 hours of sleep by the third day. And really just recognize that eating was emotional. There's nothing more to eating than emotion, and we're trained. Yeah, and it's a time filler. I saw that I was using it as a way to distract myself. Like, oh well, I have to do this. Actually, no, I have to eat now. It's time for lunch. So I'll think about that later. And then when I would eat, I would get this feeling of satisfaction as if I had accomplished something, which kind of filled in for what I was supposed to do. It's like this false satisfaction. You haven't done anything. It just makes you feel like you have. I got lunch out of the way. Yeah, I did it.
Yeah, it's societal norms and fitting in, and I've been called a contrarian.
Right.
Because I guess I'm going against the flow. I guess we're going against the flow. And
Rebels.
That's okay. I mean, against the flow is pretty good if you're listening.
Right.
If you're wondering, like, it's not a bad thing.
Right.
That's the irony. It's like,
it's a good thing.
I was going to say, like, any parents will know it's hard to get a toddler to eat. Toddlers are notorious for not eating. Like, you go through any parent message board. How do I get my 2-year-old to eat? How do I get my 3-year-old to eat? They don't want to eat anything. Why is that? Why do these children that are just in the weaning stages from nursing, they don't want to eat food? Could it be our nature that we don't
need as
that
much
we don't
food
need?
as we're eating?
And the food was introduced in order to, like I said, profit. Right. Businesses run on people being sick. Yeah. Right. And so if these people that have interest in these hospitals and how do we make more money? How do we get more clientele? Make them sick. I mean, like, it's called the Food and Drug Administration for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. And so when you start looking at what they're feeding us, or you even chase the money, if you chase the paper trail, you'll see that most people that own the businesses that we consume from are investors in both the health aspect and the determining factor, which is the product, the processed foods, the fast foods that are bad for us. They got a hand in that too. So they're profiting on the front and back end of the choices that we choose to eat. But they how do I say it? They just bombard us with commercials after commercial and keep us in what we would call our sacral place. When we get back into the spiritual talk, it keep us in this place of
consumption.
Yeah, consumption. Left brain is essentially the survival mechanism in the brain that is tied to the limbic system. The limbic system literally has the 4 F's, and those things consist of flight, fight, feed, and sex. You can guess what the other F is. But those, if you look at the world, that's exactly what everybody's interested in, right? We're in this fight or flight. We're trying to make a living or create a living, chasing the bag, right? Trying to survive, and at the same time, eating
a lot.
And they associate food and sex because they both are in the realm of the root, right, or the sacral
pleasure,
sacral,
satisfaction,
right? So it kind of like distorts that because it's not a bad, like they always think about the root chakra or the sacral as being a bad thing, but it's not, because that's where creation takes place. But they've kind of inundated us with a perversion of it where you turn something that's a virtue into a vice, right? But when you start to practice the right ways of living and not even like semen retention, people talk about things like that. There's a balance. You can't just go out here just squandering fluids all over the place. It's there for a reason, and that's the life force of man, and the life force of woman is that of her cycle. You know what I'm saying? And we all have mechanisms within our body that if misused and turned into a vice, it will destroy you. But when you start to treat it as it was meant to be used, it's a virtue, and you then come out of darkness into what we call light. You know what I'm saying? And so that's what I found out, that not only when I switched the way that I ate, that my mind shifted from more of a flight or flight type, left side type of thinking, and my masculine met the divine and they got married. And I just became more aware of things around me that I was never aware of before. And I attribute it to the way I ate because, again, your glandular functions, your organ functions, if they are inhibited, it creates a hindrance in the body. And when you start getting those things up and moving again, you start feeling a certain way. It starts to make you feel better. It makes you think clearer. And also you start to question. Like everybody I've met that's ever started this journey, after they reached a certain point in their healing, started questioning things and then started looking up things. And they were like, something's not making sense. Why are they giving us this? Why are we told that this is good for us when it's not good for us? I mean, I heard the other day on Instagram a doctor promoting that fruit will kill you. Yeah. In what day and age have we ever been taught that fruit will kill you, but a hamburger's okay, or McDonald's French fries, oh, that's all right?
I break down, a plant-based production based on 3 pillars: health, environmental, and animals, and whatever order you want to order those in. When you start doing it for one of them, you have more awareness for the other 2.
Yep.
It's like, I did it for the animals. Great. Then I realized, it's better for my health and the environment. Mm-hmm. Or myself and my parents. We did it for health purposes, right? Would you say you did it for health to start?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then you go, wow, like what am I doing to the animals and the environment? And that awareness is completely sparked. Mm-hmm. And that's the exciting part, which you want to radiate to others. Mm-hmm. It's not like a selfish thing. It's the unselfish thing. Right. And you got to be thinking bigger picture. Yeah, we're going to be launching a food line locally in North County, San Diego, and stoked you guys tried some of our product. We have a Simone Caesar sthai peanut sauce and Earl's Everything onion jam.
They're delicious.
Yes. Nice synchronization. And we're going to be in the Leucadia Farmers Market and Just Peachy, Baker and Olive, Nectarine Grove. We got a Caesar salad on the menu at the Regal Seagull. And if you go to Solterra Winery, you can order a mixed board and try our onion spreads. So we met a gentleman at this all vegan market, which is really cool. I'd suggest checking it out in Vista, like 20 minutes away. And he goes, his name's Key, he's the owner, talking about his revelation with veganism. What happens if there was a superior, being, and it came down, and what we're doing to animals, it did to us? Like, what happens if it was just better than us? And you were like, why are you doing this? Like, he was like, don't you think the animals are saying that same thing? Like, what are you doing?
Right.
I'm like, what happens if we were helpless?
Right.
It could happen.
Could. No, it definitely could.
Could be doomsday tomorrow.
Right. And people
Probably
would be
not,
like, why are you eating me? What are you doing?
Yeah, people would be, scared shitless.
You know, on that same, you were saying, health, wellness, environment, I would add spirituality to that, just because wherever you end up getting into the spirituality of it, I do think that you end up feeling like you know that it's wrong on on a spiritual level. You can kind of communicate with animals. Equine therapy is like huge. They're mirrors. They communicate us back to ourselves, and people have that same type of relationship with their dogs. Their pets or whatever. But there's this like respect that you can feel with animals more so when you're not consuming them.
Yeah, I love animals. Why are you eating them?
Right.
Yeah.
It's such a hard question to rebuttal to someone saying it, because they don't have an answer.
Right.
It's like,
I mean, a lot of the logic doesn't make sense. I mean, even to the simplest thing to me is if, say, everybody's worried about protein, but why do we eat animals that don't eat other animals?
yeah,
If protein is important, wouldn't you want to eat a lion? Something that's actually eating the same thing that you're making an excuse to eat, like flesh for? So if flesh gives you protein, why aren't they eating another animal instead of grass?
Right.
Because how they get, like we say it all the time, how are they getting their protein? Why do they have protein?
And they're huge. Cows are huge.
Right.
How do they get so big?
And so the logic behind eating animals, in my mind, just doesn't make any sense at all. You know what I mean? And if you eat something dead, whereas a lion or any other carnivore, besides like a vulture or something, eats the food while it's still alive, while the blood's still pumping, while the meat's still fresh, and all these things, right? And to me, in being plant-based and eating predominantly raw foods, I see that. When the more life that is in something has more nutritional value, and it is fresh.
It's the energetics of it.
So if somebody was a real carnivore, you would be able to go out and just eat off the fresh kill raw. Yeah. Right? But nobody wants to do that. They want to dress it and sprinkle salt and herb plants on it and make it taste good. But nothing that is in a carnivore in all of the animal kingdom sprinkles garlic and herbs
A1
on there. Yeah, A1.
I needed A1 on my food.
Yeah.
Do any meat eaters feel the urge to bite into a cow when they see it?
Right.
That's what I want to know.
And people are literally reversing autoimmune diseases that doctors couldn't touch simply by changing the way they eat. You know what I mean? Going to plant-based and learning how to fast and detox the body correctly. There's a wrong way to do things and there's a right way to do things, but our job here, like what we're doing now here, is to educate people on how the right way to do things, and bringing awareness to learn who you are. This is your world. I'm not, my thing is I don't want to judge anybody where they at. I was a huge carnivore, but when I changed, my mind shifted, and I now don't understand why I did the things that I did, because I'm thriving more now than I was prior to being the person that was like, forget potatoes and salad. Give me that rare steak off the grill, cut up, and
societal norms,
right? And just be good.
And your parents didn't know,
right?
Parents didn't know as much as they do now.
Yeah. And
our generation will know more, and we're in such a world of knowledge and information that it wasn't like that when we were growing up. No. Our parents weren't able to look things up. No. Whatever they were taught, they thought is right, and inevitably you thought is right.
Right. It's handed down.
You said you've done a 123-day juice fast.
Right.
You've done an 8-day juice fast.
Yeah.
The way that it worked for me is that intermittent fasting is a building block to get to what fasting is. When somebody's on drugs, right? If they're on heroin, you don't just take it away from them, because when you do that, their body detoxes too fast and will die. Right? There has to be a transitional period. And fasting gets a bad name because people go out here unresponsibly and fast without taking the proper steps to build the body up to be able to go longer. Because I've done 9 days dry fast with no food or water where they tell you you'll die after 3 days. Right? I lived and I felt great. And if you start studying fasting, the benefit to fasting is what's called autophagy. And what it is it means self-eating or self-sacrifice. And so when the body gets a break from eating, what it does is it goes in and kills the dead cells, regenerates new cells, goes in and, like you said, eliminates all the waste that's in the body that hasn't been used, it's just stored up. And it's just this complete regeneration of the body. Autography, am I saying it again? Autophagy. I don't know why I just want to say autography. But autophagy happens after there's different times, but some people say after 72 hours, which is like around 3 days, right? And when you reach autophagy, that's when that process happens. And intermittent fasting helps the body acclimate to having less, so then it induces that function within the body of wanting to regenerate itself. And so when I talk about fasting, oftentimes on these health shows, people will get scared. They're just like, "Oh my God, I don't want people dying on my show. Tell them, But people die more from eating too much, than they
without a doubt
die from eating not enough, right? And so
when you're about to die, you'll start eating.
Right, exactly. And then when
you'll be good.
When you find out you actually don't need that much. Less is more. Like when I built my way up to 9 days, yes, there's some sacrifice in that. And yes, there's some uncomfortability. But when we start talking about drugs like mushrooms and LSD and things like that, when we talk about those things, those are like cheat codes that you can get without going deep as in fasting, right? It's just a doorway into opening the mind, right? It's a tool, right? I'm not promoting drugs. I'm just saying most people that take psilocybin and things like that have these huge shifts in mind where it opens up this door. But when you start to fast, what you're doing is getting to that state naturally, not only getting to that state and having new revelations, that you're actually detoxing the body at the same time, because anybody that's ever did like shrooms or ayahuasca, the body first has to purge itself of whatever's inside. You'll often find you'll have to throw up or something has to come out. There's got to be a cleansing of the body before the body can even go into a state of higher thinking, right? And so when I did these fasts, I did find out not only that the health benefits were beneficial, but I started to have these revelations and dreams that were manifesting themselves in the physical. That I was going to this place in my dreams, or I would have these thoughts and epiphanies that I normally wouldn't have when I was consuming so much, right? And so one I will share is that one time I had a dream. I was in this place and I got all this, like right when I was on the 9th day of my fast, I was in this place that was dark and it was almost like a womb. I was just kind of like in the fetal position. I was getting all this information, and it was like all this information was all the answers in the world. And I was getting it, and I understood it when I was in there. And I was shown a book in the dream that said that when I leave here, I will forget everything. And I was like, there's no way. I got it. When I leave this place, I'll take it back and I'll tell everybody. Showed me this book. As soon as I opened my eyes, try to remember what I saw, gone. I was in Sedona, Arizona at the time. 2 days later, went to my favorite bookstore owned by a buddy of mine, Larry. Has over like 50,000 books. I did remember the book that I saw. And when I went to the library, the book was there. And just so happened that was the book was in a part of the library that I had yet to explore because he had just cleaned it. And so when I saw the book, I looked at it. And the things that I did remember in the dream, it showed me little sentences in the book. And as I looked through the book, I found in the book what I was shown in the dream. So now I just have to learn what signs and symbols in the mythology book mean, because mythology is actually truth written in fairy tale, right? It's allegory. Like if you could tell the truth about the body, if I name the heart Tim and the stomach, Jim, and I have this whole story about how Tim and Jim work together and all that stuff, because when you have a mind that hasn't opened, you have to make things plain for them or less complicated for them with an easy story, right? And so that's the ancient ancestors and all these had these campfire stories that they used to tell. These stories weren't just stories, but they were life lessons. And they were lessons about how you're supposed to live life, or even how the body works, or even how astrology and how the world works. You know what I mean? And so when I started to dive deeper into the allegorical meanings of scriptural writings, all these things that we call religion, I slowly started finding out that when you learn etymology and what words actually mean, then you can start unlocking what some of these things are trying to tell us. And that's what really blew my mind. And all that came from just emptying my body and becoming a conduit for whatever I needed to receive, because a cup that's full is no longer useful. Why do you need a cup if it's already full? You can only use the cup once you empty it. Mm-hmm. And then you fill it back up, and then you empty it out. So to me, that's what fasting does.
We're overflowing the cup.
Right, overflowing the cup.
You need a vacation. A vacation means to vacate.
Right.
Yeah, we're overflowing the cup. My one friend says she's a breatharian. Mm-hmm. She just breathes.
Yeah, and that's actually but when I fast, that's what practicing for. Right?
Yeah, you're just meditating and breathing and
when we talk about spirituality, back to words. Spirit means breath. By definition, by true definition, it means breath. So spirituality is getting back to breath, because when you eat a lot, when you consume a lot, it changes your breathing pattern, which changes your emotions and even the way that you think and the way that you would normally do things. Because as a child, we were breathing normally. We were doing everything that we were supposed to, and then we were taught to do the opposite within the social standards of, your grandma won't let you get up from the table until you finish your plate. But grandma, I have tons of energy. Why do I'm a growing boy, but I feel sluggish after I eat this stuff. No, you don't get up until you finish this plate, and then you got the itis and you're ready to go to sleep on the couch,
We've been lied to.
Yeah, they've definitely been lied to.
Give a little wave. We got Plant Master P here, Peri, Miss Diana. Give a little suggestions to our listeners on like a resource. Your favorite documentary?
Honestly, a lot of mine just came through experimentation, but I do know that the body doesn't actually get done with the digestion from the prior day till noon. So actually noon, when the sun's highest in the sky, is the proper time to break fast. And if you do break fast earlier than that, it needs to be something that's going to aid the body in digestion, right? Like a juice. Or
hot water,
hydrating,
lemon,
hydrating fruits and things like that. Mm-hmm. Nothing heavy, not bacon, eggs, and McMuffins.
What every hotel offers.
Right. I will say some resources people can look up in the form of, most people's on social media, and so they can look up things. So like I learned a lot from Dr. Morris about detox and how to detox properly. Medical Medium is a good one. He has a lot of good information. And when it comes to fasting, I learned a lot from reading Dr. Arnold Ehret's books. He has a few books out on fasting.
Fasting's interesting. I think it's one of those things people have come to realize that it's good to try from time to time.
Right.
And just a sheer lack of discipline or unwillingness to, hey, I can't be around anyone to get this done.
Right.
They just kind of cave and like, oh yeah, I need... Because we all want to be socially included.
Absolutely.
You got to kind of really like put a boundary up to other people and other things if you want to fast.
Right. Society's built on FOMO, right? When you try to get away from, like when I'm trying to get away from my phone and I'm around people that are on their phone, naturally, I want to be on the phone because you're like, oh man, what are they, I'm just sitting here while everybody else is doing this. And so the society's been built on where, if you start, like you said, rebellion, we're not really being rebellious. We're doing what we were naturally meant to do in a society that's taught us to do the things that are unnatural. And when everybody else is doing the unnatural thing, when you go to doing the natural thing, you get ostracized for it because it's not what everybody's doing, which I got caught in. I could have stopped my health problem before because I knew going to the bar, eating wings and pizza buffet, followed by, 22-ounce Modelo's or Dos Equis, which were my favorites at the time. But I knew that was bad for me. You know what I mean? But that's what my friends were doing. And when I got sick, the very first thing I would tell my mom was like, I'm not going to be able to go out. If I change the way I eat, I can't go out with the boys no more. Like, I got to stop drinking and I can't smoke my cigarettes. Like I don't want to do that. And my mom's like, well, you either die or, die trying to do the things that your friend's doing, or you change. You know what I mean? And so I didn't want to die. So I just guess I became a rebel by default.
Yeah, I'm over 12 weeks sober.
Nice.
No booze.
Congratulations
No
on
booze.
that,
So
man.
longest time since probably I started drinking like senior year of high school, freshman year of college.
Right.
And Diana, what about you for resources or books? Anything that someone could kind of sink their teeth into and, ooh, that Diana had some great words of wisdom. And I really found this helpful.
Well, I know that everyone is at a different place. I'm not sure what type of resources to give a beginner other than experimentation, because I think that's really important. I did a darkroom retreat too. I did just being in complete darkness for 8 days. Did
you talk to anyone?
I did. Because I had my partner at the time was like going in and out of, because he wasn't really participating, but really the majority of the time I was on my own. But it really was just about going in, and it goes back to the spirituality and focusing on the breath.
Presence.
Presence.
Awareness.
Meditation and breath work, I think, will just make people more aware of themselves, knowing yourself. I can't stress that enough.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it comes down to, because that's ultimately what we're avoiding with food. Is ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're avoiding ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And the programs, like you said, we've been lied to a lot. We have a lot of our conditions and programs come from our parents, and in order to disrupt the toxic parts of what our parents taught us unknowingly, you really start to get to the bottom of what emotions are being suppressed, right? And so a lot of times during healing, I didn't have a lot of physical detox. You know how some people have, mucoid plaque, they, start breaking out. Well, most of mine was emotional healing, where, insecurities that I had, or being rejected, stemming from certain things. And I would literally, you can't explain it until you experience it. But there's these epiphanies that happen, that when you're starting to awaken the body and start working correctly, that it starts to reveal to you things that you need to fix, that otherwise you are emotionally eating away. Because even as children, I don't have children, but I've been around a lot of people that have children. And one thing I notice is when that baby cries, they put food in its face. Just get it to shut up. Like, give it a candy bar, give it a cookie, whatever, a cookie. Just just be quiet. And then that's our first conditioning. I realized about myself, when I saw it, I was like, oh, like, I'm eating to avoid this emotion, which then leads to disease, because food ultimately has a play within diseases in the body. But at the foundation of all disease is the emotional state. So your emotions actually lead you to do the destructive thing that then leads to disease. So if you can control the emotion, you can then control what you're consuming or what you're trying to hide from yourself or suppress from yourself.
All right. So what do you do to that baby?
You give it love.
Love.
Right. You give it love. Love is the answer.
Here's
to
a
me to
pacifier.
all. Right.
Yeah.
I got work to
Just
do.
kidding.
Right. But
you give it love.
Right. And
Give
like
it
you
love.
said, you raise children, and when children are just screaming and crying, they're like, "Oh, just leave it alone. They'll be quiet." Like, to me, it's like that baby needs love. Pick the baby
Some
up.
attention.
Yeah. I mean, we've been taught that you put children in separate rooms. They have the nursery, as long as they're not crying, you don't have, they don't want to be, held or anything. That's not true. Like, even strollers to me are just, there's so much separation. And everyone has their own methods of parenting or whatever, but I really do think that we're meant to be close to our children for the majority of their early years. And they say that's coddling, it'll spoil them. That's natural. You know, babies want they're born expecting to sleep with their mothers. I think it's kind of cruel to leave a baby cold. They can't even regulate their own temperature. You know, a blanket can't substitute for that. And no, this is probably going to sound controversial, but we have the ability to telepathically communicate with our babies, you know, as mothers. And if you are self-aware enough to be, you know, to recognize that, your baby won't cry because you'll pick up on the signals immediately. I know there are people who do what's it called? Elimination communication. Even if you haven't gotten to the telepathic portion yet, you know, it just the fact that you can tell when your baby wants to go to the bathroom instantly as soon as they're born. There's no need for diapers. They tell you when they want to pee. They tell you when they want to poop. They don't want to sit in their own mess, you know? And babies are very intelligent. But when you think about it, it's really sad because they end up giving up because they realize that most, you know, mom and dad aren't listening. They can't understand me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a pet to them right now.
And we are preoccupied. Mm-hmm. We are losing. I mean, I'm not a parent. Mm-hmm. I'm sure that parent's preoccupied. Right. Yeah. That's why we have coaches and
society
sports to just go drop them off. Yeah.
And society makes it that way. Yeah. It's not. I'm not trying to place blame on anybody. You have to create a life to where you're even able to do that, and that's difficult in this society.
Can I touch on one thing?
Yeah, quick? I was going to say.
She was talking about telepathy, but even the act of breastfeeding a child. I'm not a woman, but I do research. But you know, there's a you know, the eye contact that's made between the baby and the mother, and actually the real, like, love. When we talk about the word love is a word that is explaining a bodily function, which is oxytocin. Oxytocin is a hormone that induces what we call love. And so being a child that wasn't breastfed, I can see a significant difference in my emotional state from not having that contact with my mother and having a pacifier or a cow's milk put in. I was raised by a cow. The cow was more of my mother than my mother was, because I got a cow's love over my mother's love. And although my mom was in my life my whole life, my parents are still together, thankfully, I got the whole experience of having a happy family. But I still came out, you know, somewhat messed up. You know what I mean? Like, what messed me up? And I remember during one of my fasts, I had some emotional issues popping up, like with rejection. And the picture came back to me of repeatedly getting dropped off at daycare with strangers that I didn't know, and watching my parents walk away from me into their car to go to the job. Like, why are you leaving me here with these strangers? I don't want to be here with them. It's making me nervous. It's making me anxious. And I would sit and cry in that window every day for months. And I just asked myself a question. Why do I feel so rejected when I was given so much physical love from my parents, and I still feel like I'm being rejected? But it stems back to a lot of things that we were programmed within the first 7 years of our life. That's when you program a child, is within the first 7 years of the life is crucial. And so a lot of the healing journey comes with reprogramming the subconscious, and also reprogramming and changing correcting the traumas and identifying the traumas that are given. These emotions that society wants us to suppress and just eat or take a drug for. So,
all right, let's go last little bit here. So I've been asking this to all my guests. The key to life. Mine is just starting off on the right foot each day. Mm-hmm. I like making the bed.
Yeah.
When I make the bed, it makes me, all right, let's keep rolling. Mm-hmm. So
that's a good one, because I did that myself before I'd wake up to go to work. It's the first thing you do that's productive.
Yeah, I'm super grateful I have a bed and you know, a roof over my head. And mm-hmm. we were talking about, like, I did all the wrong things. Mm-hmm. A lot of people, you know, have done the wrong things, and it's deciding, do you want to do the right things? Mm-hmm. Do you want to eat cleaner? Do you want to live happier? Like, I was eating a ton of meat right mm-hmm. before I went plant-based. Right. I did not make my bed for many, many, many years. Mm-hmm. And now you start combining, make the bed, eat clean, eat less. And it's like, whew,
It's like a domino effect
Yeah.
once you.
You're like unstoppable. I'm gonna be like Lahiri floating on top of the ceiling.
Yeah. I would say my key to life is to, what I always say is to know yourself. Know yourself. That's what you're here for. Everybody else is just an extra in your movie. Not saying that anybody doesn't matter, but you're here for you. You're here to experience. You're here to learn. You're here to just experience this whole grand scheme of things. And I guess the first thing that I know that I did that really showed me who I was just look up my name, the meaning of my name. People have no idea how powerful words are. You know what I mean? Not to dig too deep, but when you look up your name, you were given that name for a reason. And that's the very first thing that I do when I meet anybody is I look up their name, because if words so-called manifest things, and whatever somebody's calling us or putting out into the world has a direct effect on how things create itself in the world, right? So when I looked up my name, I found out what it meant, and then I would start getting into astrologies or, looking up more things, and then I could connect the dots on a lot of things for myself. And to me, it brought me a lot of encouragement and a lot of self-worth by taking the time and just learning who I am, where we're told not to do that. It's selfish.
And who are you? What's your name?
Peri Jamar Slaughter.
And what does Peri Jamar Slaughter mean?
Peri, wanderer, traveler.
And you took that to heart.
Right, I did. And because when
like,
you dig,
dude, that's me.
That's me. Yeah, because it was me. And I went into
the
right, and I went to the astrology of everything, and it pointed right directly to that. Like I was acting outside of my nature by being employed at a factory for 19 years, whereas I was being stagnant and not living out my purpose. Because I do believe when we search for ourselves, we find out what our life purpose is, but we're so distracted by everything else on the outward that we're like, again, all this is about looking inside. Meditation, whatever it is to look within the universe from the inside perspective. And my name being traveler and wanderer, also it comes from the word peregrine, which is a falcon,
fastest
bird in the
animal in the world.
And also it refers to, it was used by the Egyptians to be the head of Horus, which Horus represents the sun. It's a deity of the sun. And wanderer actually is also the name definition for the word planet. And at the age of 19, I out of rebellion, got only tattoo I have, a picture of the eye of Horus as a sun on my left shoulder. Had no idea why I got it at the time. But now things are starting to make sense, right? And then Jamar means beautiful or handsome, but also means the image of God, which is also the sun, what I consider the sun, the source of all life and being. If the sun goes away, everybody goes away. And then the word slaughter, last names to me are something. My last name was actually a slave-given name. It's not even my real last name. When I dug into my ancestry, my family came here. We have a letter from the slave master of my family, so that's how we ended up in Virginia. And Slaughter wasn't our last name, but we don't know what our last name was. But I guess it was by trade, and so I was a barbecue man, so I guess it makes sense.
Yeah,
right?
it was definitely some negative connotation with that last name.
That
wasn't like, oh, we love you, Slaughter.
Right. So some kind of karmic thing going around beyond me. But that's what I'm
last name.
Right. But that's what I'm saying is like the more you dig into who you are, not just stopping at the name, but some people don't believe in astrology or whatever it is. But for people that do, astrology is a powerful tool if used right and understood correctly. And you can learn a lot about yourself with different systems. Human design is another one. Gene keys is another one. But when I put all these systems together, it all made sense. It all came back to just my name and who we are, because I believe that we're not named something just out of happenstance. Like something, that name means something for us, whether we want to believe that or not. And I didn't believe it until I figured it out myself. So
well said. And know who you are. Creative writing. Research who you are. If you're busy with a 9 to 5, like find some time to figure out your life path number, your rising, your this, that. Whether you believe it or not, just do it, because
it's fun.
It's kind of like eating. You have time, like experiment. Once you get the answer, you're not going to keep looking for the answer.
Right.
So just learn a little bit about yourself. Know who you are. I love that answer.
We watch silly things on the internet all the time.
Yeah, just learn about yourself a little more. Yeah. All right, Diana. Let's wrap it up here with key to life
I'd say self-love and love in general. That's really the key, because once you love yourself, then you can love others. You're capable of loving someone else at that point, and you're also going to be treating yourself right. So all the good things that you know you should do are just going to automatically follow once you really develop that self-love. And that, self-acceptance, and that goes with knowing yourself, because you have to know yourself in order to love yourself and accept yourself. And it's funny because you call me Princess Diana, and a lot of people automatically assume, like, oh, were you named after Princess Diana? I was named after Wonder Woman. So I
just threw princess in front of there because
Yeah.
that's the
I
only
did
Diana
that when
I
I met
know.
her. I did that when I met her too.
but and Diana means divine.
Right.
So yeah.
It's a picture of my enlightenment, because I feel like I found the divine inside, and then it
Good.
manifested itself on the outside. I just put out a raw food course called the Barbecue Course. It's aimed towards people that are wanting to detox the body, or the transition to a raw plant-based lifestyle. And you can find that in the link in my bio, or just shoot me a message, and I can send you the link. So, yeah, I'm just glad that all this amazing things are happening. Like, it's awesome to meet people like yourself, and thank you for having us on.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're very, very grateful to have spent the day with you. It was definitely...
Again, you've been listening to a plant-based production with our lovely guests, Diana and Peri. You could find Peri on Instagram. His handle is PlantMaster, and we'll have that in the description. Again, my name is Skylar Heyman. Yeah, we've been planning it out, so
Yeah.
glad we made it happen.